Oh, yes, hi, and welcome to the Dark Knight Conspiracies, episode 92. History is repeating itself again. Again, it's been another heavy news week. The narrative changes every single day. The problem is it's being overshadowed by all this Russia-Ukraine stuff. And there's a reason for that. I mean, I've been watching pretty much Newsmax. I really can't get into watching any of that other stuff, even though, you need to see what the enemy is saying. But I've pretty much tried to get away from the TV. With, on occasion, you gotta see what they're saying, right? And, again, there's so much happening around the world and locally, and it's being overshadowed. They're not covering any of this stuff. You get a little bit here, a little bit there, but then it goes right back to this whole Russia-Ukraine stuff. And again, I'm gonna stick to my original comment. Right now, I'll believe anything Putin and Xi say over our government. And I don't know if I showed it in a previous article, but there was an article, and again, there's just so much, and then to cover. Smollett got released from jail. I'm pissed off about that. You got this Levine man being nominated for Woman of the Year. And again, that's a whole nother show. It's funny how they needed women to be independent back in the 70s, but now all of a sudden they're trying to get rid of them. And I think that's a product of this whole CRT and the mama bears, that they're starting to realize that women are a little too much powerful right now, and we need to take them down a peg or two. But again, I digress. I could do another whole show on this, this swimmer and everything, and that shit just pisses me off. But let's just stick to what I think is important right now. And towards the end of this, we'll get into the, history keeps repeating itself because we don't learn from it. And I'm starting to believe in this whole cycle process, that we go through cycles. That shit happened 40 years ago, and then it gets replayed and replayed with a total different spin. And that's just my opinion on it. But before I get into that, let's start with, it's starting to resurface again, folks. And remember, we're in an election year, right? They gotta do stuff. They gotta get this mail-in balloting, because that's the only way that this stuff can get done. So, lo and behold, look who resurfaces after quite a while of nobody saw him. He wasn't on TV. Nobody knew where this guy was. Now all of a sudden he's out and says maybe necessary to reinstitute the restrictions to stop an additional surge. And I just want to point out that little mole is new. Just saying. And look, coming from somebody, I'm up in age. And, I've had my share of moles up here. So, it could be a normal process. Just saying. But I thought it's interesting. Now all of a sudden he resurfaces and he's got this mole, but I digress. And there's reports, and again, you can look this stuff up yourself. I can't put all this stuff out there. I'm just trying to get you to at least start the process and do some research for yourself. Like I said, I don't take my word for it. Go look this stuff up. Do your own research, because ultimately you're in control of your own life. I'm not here to tell you what to do. That's not my goal of this. My goal is to try and open your eyes, get you to think in a different way than you're used to. That's it. So there's reports coming out of China that they've had these massive lockdowns, that this all of a sudden COVID's just reemerged in China, and they're having all these issues. And now this comes out, and I questioned a couple weeks ago why everything started to go away. And we can thank this whole Russia-Ukraine for COVID going away, because nobody's really paying attention to it anymore, in my opinion. But now they're trying to resurface it. But I thought it odd that they had all dates set around March 1st, March 15th. And prior to that, when they were doing all this is when this whole Russia-Ukraine stuff came out. I just thought it was why do you need time? Why are you putting a deadline of, well, we're going to do it 2 weeks later? I mean, this takes 2 minutes. You go on national TV, you say, we're getting rid of it all, business as usual tomorrow morning. This isn't rocket science. There's a reason they were extending this stuff. This witch of New York, again, state of emergency through April. What emergency? Again, I just want to point out something. And we've put up with this shit for 2 years. A pandemic. What is a pandemic? But before I ask that question, let me ask this. How can something with a 99 point yada 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 percent of recovery become a pandemic? And it pisses me off that I go out there in public and there's still people out there wearing masks. Really? There's people out there, you're just not going to wake up. And at what point do you just draw the line and say, you know what, we're just not going to reach these people, let's move? And I think you all know what I'm talking about, because this shit's been dragging on and dragging on. And quite frankly, I think it's going to drag on all the way till 2024 and past that. Because we're seeing nothing but kick the can down the road, stonewalling. I can get into, the whole Arizona stuff. Arizona's really pissing me off. Again, this has been going on almost 2 years. You got this attorney general there. How long? I don't want to hear, will investigations take time? How long do they take? You can't tell me you don't have enough evidence at this point in time to at least start bringing some people in for questioning. Because we don't know that any of this stuff's happening, but I digress. I want to stick on the topic. So, Austria, just 2 weeks after they got rid of everything, they're bringing it back. So you see where I'm going with this? This whole, in my opinion, this whole Russia-Ukraine thing's falling apart. And they're trying to start something else now, because I just think people are waking up. You're starting to see more and more videos out there of Ukrainian people speaking out, telling you what's really going on. But of course, MSM They're not going to cover any of that stuff. And we know we got inflation and gas prices and everything going on. And again, I think this is the next pandemic because this isn't getting covered. Now all of a sudden they're starting this shit. Oh, the bird flu's back. Egg prices soar because bird flu's back. Look, make no mistake, I don't think there is a food shortage in this world. This is all being manipulated. I mean, they're telling us, I'm telling you, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And I'll stick to this. All has to do with the collapse of the petrodollar. Just my opinion. And it's going to happen overseas. And this will be the last nation that it affects. And when that happens, all I can say is be prepared. So now let's get into the good stuff. Now all of a sudden the New York Times comes out. Oh, the laptop is real. You know, in my opinion, this laptop is going to sink a lot of people. I thought it would be the Anthony Weiner one, because I'm surprised none of that stuff has come out yet. And I keep saying, if you want to unify, you want to unite a country, and this is where I have a problem with the Orange Man. Why aren't you getting into all this, you know, releasing the child trafficking, human trafficking, you know, all the stuff that really would unite a people. But we may see this out of this because we know a lot of that stuff's on there. And, you know, a lot of people out there are condemning this man, and, you know, I'm not going to stick up for him. But again, there's so much disinformation out there. People have a hard time discerning truth. I mean, we know what they're doing with the CRT and DeSantis with his laws he's putting in Florida. I mean, we're starting to see it, but it's just not to the level where you're uniting the country. So, getting back to this, and we saw this during one of the debates. Orange Man brought this up. Biden responded, Russia, disinformation, this is all fake. So, you know, this, by suppressing this, and the media did the same thing. And I thought what was interesting, you had these 51 members of the intelligence agency sign this letter saying this was all disinformation. What I think this points out is the bigger problem is the three-letter agencies. And this might be the takedown, that these things are going to go away in the future. Just my opinion. I got to be careful what I say here. So there's now a meltdown. Oh, Egghead. On TV, constantly. Russian disinformation, Russian disinformation. He came out and literally said, when did I claim that? So, it's panic time. And I just find it odd because prior to this New York Times article coming out, Biden gives a bizarre speech about naked pictures and blackmail. And I bet everybody knows somebody that in an intimate relationship, what happened was The guy takes a revealing picture of his naked friend or whatever in a compromising position and then blackmails. I'm sorry, I don't know anybody, do you? I don't know anybody who did that. I don't know anybody who does that. You know, again, people's private lives are their private lives, but... So, my take on this was... there was a tip-off. So where's the tip-off coming from? And part of me wants to say, again, this... we're watching a movie, this is all this is all scripted. But if there's a tip-off... because we know there's a grand jury investigation going on in Delaware with his son. So either somebody's leaking what's going on there, or this is all scripted stuff. But make no mistake, I think bombs are getting ready to come, folks. I think we're going to start seeing some stuff, and look, we all know he's compromised with Ukraine, with China, and probably Russia. So we may see the change of batter coming, but I don't think it's going to be HRC, because Durham is slowly leaking, indicting people connected to her and leaking out stuff there. So if I was to make a prediction, we may see some effort of Michelle Obama getting in there. And let's think about this. Nobody's got any dirt on her. Nobody's going to be able to attack her because, let's face it, she's African American. And the minute anybody attacks her, it's going to be racism. I get tired of that whole bullshit. I have known so many people of so many different ethnic origins, and I have never encountered any of this, what they call racism. These are some of the nicest people I have ever known. I got along with, had a good relationship, working, non-working. We talked about these type of things, and we were never at odds. I mean, to us, it didn't exist. And again, maybe I live in a bubble to that aspect, but I've never experienced this thing they call racism. So now let's get into, or before we get into the history repeats itself, I just want to tie this back into the whole COVID thing coming back. And I said this before, you're going to start seeing other countries producing evidence. So Russia goes before the UN again and challenges the US that if the documents are fake of what they are producing, then why did the head of the DTRA office at the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, Joanna Winthrow, sign off on them? Oh, there he is, look. Oh boy, I could just have a field day with that, but I'm leaving it alone. Because that just disgusts me that he's out. We have no justice in this system, but let's stick to topic here. So now let's get into why history is repeating itself. So we know our modern day, and I'm calling him our modern day Winston Churchill, because this is what Churchill did back in the day of World War II, and pretty much did it through radio, probably telephone calls. Didn't have this kind of technology. So Zelensky goes before Congress. And he's going before all these nations. He went to Canada, he went to Germany, he went to the EU, And he's doing these Churchill type speeches, but this is what I think is interesting. When he came here, and this is what he invoked, and this is what I want to touch on. Remember Pearl Harbor, he said, the terrible morning when your sky was black from planes attacking you. Remember September 11th, a terrible day when evil tried to turn your city's independent territories into battlefields. He also invoked MLK Jr. Now, I got two takes on this. My first take is what do Pearl Harbor and 9/11 have in common? They got us into wars. Roosevelt wanted no part of what Hitler was doing. Why? They were thousands of miles away. They had no navy. They had no planes that could cover the distance. They weren't a threat to us at the time. We were focused on Japan, who had a navy. Germany didn't have a navy. They had submarines, but not to the extent of what we had, battleships, aircraft carriers. So we actually held an advantage over Germany at the time with that capability, but Japan was a different story. So who attacked us during Pearl Harbor? Japan. What was the result? We got into World War II with Hitler because Hitler was associated with Japan. Axis of evil back then, right? What happened after 9/11? We were attacked on our own soil. Oh, we got to go to war. Let's go into Iraq, who had nothing to do with it. It was all about Iraq didn't want to use the petrodollar. They didn't have a central bank, and you can look this up. There were 5 countries at the time that did not have a central bank. Go look up who those countries were, because I can tell you off the top of my head it was Iraq, Syria, Libya, and there's 2 more I can't remember off the top of my head. But what happened during these last 20 years? What countries did wars start in? You get the picture? So what I think was being signaled is we're about to get hit with another false flag to get us into a war with Russia. That's one theory. And again, these are my own personal opinions. The other theory, which I'm kind of sticking to, is that Zelensky's working with Putin because we know we have this Azov, AZOF, go look it up, faction of people operating within Ukraine. And I'm gonna say this: if Russia wanted Ukraine, it could be done in 48 hours. The fact that this is taking this long is there's surgical strikes going on, and it's a lot more complicated than what people think or what we're being told. So my other take was he was addressing Congress, and I'll use the movie phrase here. We know what you did last summer. Basically, what I think he was doing was telling them about the crimes we've committed as a nation on other countries and how we've gotten rid of our own citizens. And that's just my off-the-wall take on it. So, That's good. I think it's going to go on for a little bit longer, and I do think we're going to see a peace deal come out of this, but it's not going to be until everything has been cleaned up. And then what happens? Again, my opinion. You know what happens when Ukraine gets freed of the stranglehold on them? Because we all know it's the money laundering hub of the politicians and the George Soros types. And again, I point to go look for the article, the speech out there, George Soros saying we need to get rid of Putin and Xi. And quite frankly, when you got somebody like Soros saying that, I'm going to believe anything Putin and Xi say, knowing the history of that fella. But what happens when this is all said and done? What happens if Zelensky goes before the UN or goes before the world and starts putting out information, right? All of a sudden, you're going to see an about face and everybody start to attack him, just my opinion. But I still think Taiwan's down the road. And after that, who knows? We may see a Ukraine-type situation on our own soil. And I know the verdict's out there. Look, these guys could still be bad guys, and their goal is to take over the world. I'm not disputing that. But for right now, the problem is I can't trust anything my government's doing or saying. Because they're all a bunch of criminals. But that's my opinion. And who knows, my channel might get taken down for this. And again, if for those of you that don't know, if that happens, you can find me on BitChute under the same title. Actually, I get more viewers over there than I do on this channel because, quite frankly, I think I'm shadow banned, and I take pride in I got kicked off of Twitter. So I take it as it's the old saying is if you're experiencing flack, you must be over the target. But I digress. So that's today's show. Again, I could do so many shows. I apologize, but I'm not like other people that's all they do for a living is put these videos out. I wish I could, but I have restrictions and limitations just like normal people do. So I appreciate everybody that watches, comments, hit the like button, hit the dislike button. Again, if I can change one person's mind, because ultimately God is controlling this, regardless of what your beliefs may be or how you look at this. This is just too crazy to not think that, in my opinion. But that's, I respect everybody's personal beliefs. I respect their religions and what they believe in. I'm not trying to change people's religions, but I talk from my own personal faith. It's my decision. It's my choice. I respect what you do and what your faith and beliefs are. I don't go attacking them. I don't say I'm right and you're wrong. But that's where I get my strength from. All glory and praise to the Lord as we are approaching Easter. And I have a feeling it's going to be a wacky one. So with that, stay strong, stay safe, stay vigilant, be prepared, keep your faith in the Lord. God bless you, everybody. Zebra 3, take us home.